Hi AP Seminar students, Mr. Muller here, and in today's lesson we're going to talk about how to develop a problem statement and research question. Why do they exist? What's the point? And how can they be used for you to develop arguments in both written and oral format? Hope you're excited. I'm excited. Let's get started. Now in our previous lesson we were talking about what, why, and order to statements. And we talked about how what, why, and order to statement is really just developing the path for research, taking an interest, going to general topics, picking one and developing some questions about it, then doing some checks to make sure the question is specific enough, asking a so what question, developing the what, why, and order statement. Now you really haven't done at this point a lot of hard research. You haven't looked at professional journals. You're just trying to maybe check some tertiary sources, check some social media, check some basic websites to learn just enough about that general topic to develop a what, why, and order statement. But now you have to go a little bit deeper. You have to look more specifically at that particular topic in higher quality sources in order to develop a problem statement. Because what you have to do is contextualize the issue. When you write an argumentative essay or when you do an oral presentation, you have to make sure that you as the writer and me as the reader are on common ground. That I should know enough about that topic to understand there's a problem with it that needs to be answered. That's what a problem statement does. It contextualizes an issue for readers and introduces a problem that needs to be solved. It also leads directly to a research question, so it shows flow between the contextualization and the problem that you found in this topic and the research question that needs to be answered, which will lead to a working claim. So a research question, and I cannot emphasize this enough, is one of the most important sections besides a main claim, maybe the most important section of an argumentative essay, because it is what you are trying to answer. It will direct all of your research on that topic. So let's talk about how to develop that. A problem statement looks just like this. So let's say in my last video I was talking about my what, why, and order statement was I'm trying to find out about the contributions of firefighters during in London during the Battle of Britain, in order to determine their contribution to victory or the survivability of London during World War II, in order for my readers to appreciate their efforts and honor them, or to understand the importance of emergency services during wartime, right? So maybe I looked at some blogs, did some general reading, maybe I went to history.com, maybe I went to Wikipedia for that. Well, now I've got to get a little bit more in depth. Well, let's see if I can find some old newspaper sources from World War II. Maybe I can find some journal articles on EBSCOhost or JSTOR about firefighters. Maybe I can get a book about firefighters in London during World War II. And I'm just going to look at that information, and I'm not, getting quotes or anything like that, although I may use those sources when I write the essay. I'm just trying to think, what's the problem? What is the issue in this topic? So, after I do that, I'm going to fill out this problem statement. So here's an example. There's a problem with the recognition of firefighters in London during World War II. Despite their contributions to saving lives and buildings and services that save people in London, there is not enough recognition of their efforts. Right? So what I did was I identified the topic. I said, despite something that should be happening, something isn't happening. Now what I need to do then is prove that. So that's when I insert a quote or a parenthetical or a paraphrase that proves that yes, this isn't happening. As a reader, it lets me know, oh, okay, you're not just making stuff up. There's some evidence to support it. So then I need to say this problem has negatively impacted X because. So now that I know something isn't happening, I need to say what the consequences of that happening are. So this problem has negatively impacted the legacy of firefighters in London, or has affected public perception of emergency services in wartime because they think they're an insignificant part of war when in actuality they're incredibly important. So now that I've developed the victims of the problem, now I have to say what the possible cause of this problem is. So I'm going to say a possible cause of this problem is the lack of research or extended research on the contributions of firefighters in London during World War II. So now I have to say perhaps a study which investigates the effects of firefighters, the contributions of firefighters, could remedy this situation. So what I've done is I've taken my general topic. I've said even though something should be happening, something else isn't. I've said some people that there are negative consequences of this. Here's the possible cause. Here's what should probably be looked at to fix the situation or come to some conclusion on it. Let's look at another example. There's a problem with middle school education. So general topic. Despite efforts to educate middle schoolers on appropriate, safe, and effective uses of technology for learning, cyberbullying is occurring. So it's saying, here's what should be happening, here's what is happening, which affects about 10 million middle school students each year. There's a source to defend what you're saying. Let's talk about the victims. This problem has negatively impacted 28% of middle school students because many schools decline to discipline off-campus behavior. A possible cause of this problem is how to effectively address the ill effects of cyberbullying are complex and are unknown. So they're saying the issue is there's so many complex issues of cyberbullying, how do schools even tackle it? Perhaps a study which investigates the ill effects of cyberbullying and how they were addressed could remedy this situation. Now the really cool thing is that last sentence is so close to a research question. And what you do is you take that last sentence which says here's what probably should be studied, and you're going to turn that into a question that will guide the research for the rest of of your time on that topic. So let's take that example. Here's the research question. What are the ill effects of cyberbullying and associative punitive measures implemented by schools? So that's what I'm going to be researching. So the rest of my research in professional journals, in any sources that I can find, is going to try and answer that question. And my claim, or my working thesis, working claim, will come and answer that research question. So really the two things that are the most important sections of argument are the research question, because it guides your research, and your claim, because it guides the argument that you're going to write or present. Now, how can I make sure my research question is good? There's a test we can actually do. And for a research question to be acceptable, it has to hit every single one of these criteria. So, a good research question is simple. Anyone could read that and say, oh, okay, I know what you're trying to answer. If it's overly complex or I don't quite know what you're trying to answer, it's not simple. It needs to require judgment. As a reader, I either have to say, yes, I agree with you, or no, I disagree with that. If I don't have to agree or disagree with it, then it's not an arguable research question. It also needs to lead to debate. There has to be multiple perspectives of that research question. If it's a question that is easily answerable and everyone can say, well, yes, it's obvious, that's obviously the answer, then it's not leading to debate. It's not a good research question. It has to have multiple perspectives. There have to be multiple perspectives of that problem from different sources. It also has to have a manageable scope. Now, this is probably the toughest thing, as my current AP research students would tell you. The question can't be too general, but it also can't be too narrow. So let me give you an example. If I said, what are the effects of deforestation? That's way too general. Deforestation takes place in multiple places all over the world, and each one of those places has different factors of why that's occurring. But if all I said was, what are the effects of deforestation in this small little national park in Wyoming, well, that's too narrow because I don't think I'm actually going to find enough research and information and evidence to support a paper on that. So, another aspect, clear vocabulary, wording is specific, and it has to be researchable. That means I have to be able to find evidence to answer that question. The general rule, let's say you're writing a 2,000-word paper. That means you need about 16 sources that you have to consult and look at, maybe even cite, in order for that to be properly researched. In terms of AP research, in the 5,000-word paper, they need to consult 15 to 20 sources as well. So, let's practice this. I'm actually going to go through this process with you. What I'd like you to do is look at each one of these research questions and go through the checklist for them. Are these valid research questions? If they're not, what parts of that checklist do they not hit? So pause this video, see what you can do, and then come back. Are you back? Okay, let's look at each one. What are the advantages and disadvantages of nuclear power stations? Well, first, that doesn't lead to debate because I don't have to take a side on either. It's just, okay, here are the disadvantages and the advantages. I don't have to do anything. It also doesn't require judgment. It doesn't make me do anything. It's just, there's the information. It's not arguable. Let's look at number 2. Do humans cause global warming, and can we alleviate the effects? Well, first, is that really a manageable scope? Do humans cause global warming, all the global warming that goes on around the world, and can we alleviate all of the effects? There's too much information. The scope is way too big. Also, clear vocabulary. What is effects? What effects of global warming? If you told me specifically what the effects were, that'd be better. Also, this is not a simple question. This is an extremely complex question that you just can't feasibly answer. Let's look at number 3. Is the world a safer place with nuclear weapons? Okay, well, let's look at vocabulary. What do you mean safer? What does safer mean? How would you define safer? Is that a really simple question? I mean, nuclear weapons impacts different parts of the world. There's regional powers. Multiple countries have nuclear weapons. I think that's not really researchable also. How are you going to research, is the world safer with nuclear weapons? How are you going to find evidence that will support that? It's not really researchable. What about number 4, aid or trade? Okay, what do you mean aid or trade? What do you mean? What's the scope? Where are you talking about for aid or trade? Is that actually researchable? I don't even know what you're trying to answer the aid or trade question for. I don't know what lens you're looking at this for. I don't know what the topic is. Also, vocab, obviously. What is aid? What is trade? Those are some practice research questions and what they miss on the checklist. If you want to look at a good one, check the cyberbullying ones. So, let's say you've gone through, you've got a what, why, and order statement, you've done some more in-depth research, developed the problem statement, had a research question. Now, what do you do to finish level 1 research? So after you've got the research question, you're going to find more sources from multiple perspectives, so multiple perspectives about that topic that will try to help you answer the research question. You're going to note the main claims and the evidence used for those sources and put them on an idea map. Once you've got the idea map and you want to have multiple perspectives up there to try and answer that research question, you're going to try and craft a working thesis or a working claim. Remember, in a group paper, if you have 5 people in your group, you need to have 5 different lenses you're looking at this from. If you're doing the individual paper, you need at least 2 lenses, or you can look at 2 different aspects within a lens, and we'll talk more about that in class. After you've crafted a working claim, you're then going to start level 2, where you go and find more in-depth sources to create subclaims and gather evidence to support those subclaims, create solutions for that as well. Well, that's level 1 research for you. Hope you learned something you didn't know before. Thanks for watching.